Freaking first cut. Golly.
Welcome to the First Cut Podcast. I'm Rick Gehman, and this is your DFS preview for this week's Valspar Championship. Joining me to break it all down, new background, Greg DuCharme is here. Hey, Greg.
Yeah. Hey, how's it going, guys? First time in the new background ever since I moved. But I have to get this out of the way. I'm sorry. Getting that out of the way. All right. So, happy to be in here, and it's a new time, a unique week, and I can't wait. I'm really excited for this DFS show.
Yeah, we're doing this on a Tuesday morning because obviously the Players' Championship ran until Monday evening. Sia Nejad is here. Sia, it is a quick turnaround, but that will not lessen the value of the information that will be provided in this show. Is that correct?
If anything, it will enhance it. And by the way, Rick, and Greg, this goes for you as well. If you guys hit one out of bounds and you tell me where you think it crossed and you want to drop it wherever you want to, I'm just going to go with what you guys said.
Out of the three of us, who would be? I feel like Greg's the Daniel Berger. Greg would definitely be like, no, I know where it crossed, and you guys are idiots.
I think so. I think Daniel was right on this. You know how strongly I feel about how big of a fan I am of Hovland. I'm a fan of Damon too, and Berger. I think Berger had a case there. But besides the point, I have a feeling that's a show for a different day. Thanks, Sia.
I'll just say this. If Victor Hovland and Joel Damon are adamant that you are wrong, you are wrong. That's the end of it.
But did you see the video evidence? What do you think of the video evidence there?
Okay, I could break this down like the Zapruder film, but the video evidence is not real evidence, Greg, because the top tracer is not always perfect, and the cameraman, to me, was a little askew to the right, which I think helps Berger's argument here. It's very difficult to tell from the video evidence.
So what I would say about the video evidence.
Good job, Sia. We're in this now.
Sia. We could keep it quick. I'll just say this as I'm acting as Daniel Berger now. Okay. What Daniel Berger said during the clip and what the video evidence show match. Now, neither one of those can you take as at full face value, right? They both have their flaws, but the two of them match near identically, which to me is a really strong case for Berger. And I don't think it started as right as Hovland and Damon said. And I think it caught a lot more than they saw from their angle. So I don't think anybody in this case had malintention. Of
course not.
I think it's I think the viewpoint was, in my opinion, in Berger's favor.
And as the only one of us three with a Juris Doctor next to his name, I just want to say that Greg's motion to reconsider has been granted. I think Daniel Berger was in fact right.
Okay. I'm glad we went down this path.
Hold on.
I've won.
Jacob, just drop the wrong drop.
Oh, no.
There it is. All right. Well, we will debate that at a different time. But for now, a couple of announcements here. A couple of things out of the gate. We have extended the official fan one and done vote until Wednesday morning, because that is when the mega preview pod will be live on the First Cut YouTube page. So you still have time to vote. That link is in the description right now. So go in there, get your vote in, and try to surpass Kyle Porter and Sia Nejad this week. The other thing, and Sia, I know how many lineups you like to build early in the week. How many brackets have you put together at the moment?
You know what? I've only put a few together so far, but I know that, the CBS one, that the First Cut one that we're sponsoring, I haven't done that one yet, but I'm going to do that one tonight. So usually I do like 8 to 10 brackets. This year, I'll probably cut it down a little bit. I'll put, all my eggs, instead of like 10 different baskets, I'll probably put them in like 4 or 5.
Who's going to win it all, Greg? Have you filled out a bracket yet?
Well, I'm saving my best for the CBS one, which I like to see we'll be doing tonight. That might be my only bracket. I used to be an expert. I used to be so deep in this that it was crazy. This is in my Nerf basketball days. But since retiring, I've put all my eggs into the golf DFS basket. Who's going to win this thing? I think a long shot could be a Tennessee. I think they look really good. I think I'm just not sure Duke has it in them. But how about Kansas? I'll say Kansas.
Oh, okay. That's an interesting team. I will not reveal my bracket, although it is already in at CBS. Nope. Yeah. CBSsports.com/first cut bracket. That's where you go. That's where you enter. That's where you beat me and beat Sia and beat Mark and beat Greg and beat everybody. And you can win yourself a $100 gift card to Paramount Plus. You start creating leagues with your friends. You beat up on them too. Who knows? You might even be in attendance at the 2023 Final Four because one of those trips also being given away. I think that's it. I think we can jump into this, boys. Valspar Championship, Innisbrook, quick turnaround. This is the final stop, Sia, of the Florida Swing. And as with other Florida Swing courses, this is not necessarily super Florida-y, but it is going to play hard. Generally one of the tougher non-major stops that we get on the schedule.
Yeah, and well, just like anything else with Florida, we'll monitor the wind. It's certainly not going to be anything like we saw at the Players, but and it's funny how that worked out because there were certain like wind splits that people were on. So, and Rick, I think we addressed this last week. It might have been on the Tuesday show as opposed to the Monday show of the First Cut. But, when you try to predict the wind, you get it wrong, 7 or 8 out of 10 times. So it's just one of those things where if you're in, because this is a DFS show, I feel like I have to say this. If you're going to try to do that, more power to you. You might have some pretty good info. But if you're going to, quote, stack a side or stack a wave, you got to do the opposite stack too. Maybe you don't want to do that as many times, but if you're going to do 3 or 4 like big lineups with stacks with like a PM AM wave, do at least 1 or 2 on the other side. Because if you're wrong, then you're going to be really right because most of the people, the conventional wisdom is going to be on the one you stack. So if you have a couple opposite stacks, you're going to be in really good shape with those 1 or 2 that you've built.
The popular PM AM stacks from last week were wiped clean thanks to a 3.5 shot wave disadvantage. Greg, a unique kind of setup on tour. It's a 71, par 71 with 5 long par 3s. And then the 5s are probably the only holes that are going to be playing under par this week. It's a pretty tough little test out there, not even including the snake pit, 16, 17, and 18.
It's not an easy golf course. That is for sure. There's a little more elevation than some of the other Florida courses we've seen. Go ahead.
Have you played it?
No, but
I thought this was going to be right up your alley here.
No, unfortunately, the only place I've played near there even was Stream Song, but I haven't really played much golf on the west coast of Florida. My understanding is that that's pretty close to Tampa, kind of on the way, but more inland in the middle of nowhere. Right across Alligator Alley. But anyway,
scary stuff.
Yeah, very terrifying. I have some stories about that trip. But besides the point, when you go to Valspar, I think of a couple of players who have won in the past who kind of highlight what the golf course is about. One of them, which you'll love, Adam Hadwin. And Adam Hadwin, when he won here, was painting it this week. He was working the ball both ways. He had great control over his golf ball. Paul Casey, the 2 years that he won, great control of his golf ball. Tiger Woods, who came in second to Paul Casey, was really flighting the ball nicely, working it both ways. So I like shot makers this week. I like guys who ball strikers, absolutely. But guys who are really, really solid tee to green, I think are going to have a big edge.
It is not lost on me that Greg used the term painting it to describe Adam Hadwin's Valspar Championship victory. Valspar is a paint company, Greg. Good on you, bud. We might be a day late, but you are in mid-season form.
I got a paint reference in, and I got my boy Adam Hadwin in, who I said a couple weeks ago I'm done with him. I may be an Indian giver this week. Go back on my word.
Yeah, we're going to talk a lot about Adam Hadwin because for the first time in about a year, I'm in on Hadwin. I'm going to share my screen here. This is the cheat sheet. We'll talk about this more in depth in just a second. But Sia, we've already had a couple of WDs, so I had to go through. I had to remove Paul Casey. I had to remove Doug Gim. I had to remove Sebastian Munoz. We've got to be hyper aware of these WDs because the guys that played, especially late into the week last week, might be a hair tired. Might sit this one out.
Yeah, that's really interesting because all 3 of those guys you just mentioned, and I'm sure there's been others that have withdrawn, but they were really down there, like in the home stretch on Monday early evening. So, when it comes to the question, which is going to be a natural question this week, which is, well, you think these guys from the previous week who played 4 rounds, are they going to be tired? My answer usually to that, and even this week, is going to be no. Like, in other words, I'm not going to factor that in. My take on that is, if you went ahead and withdrew, then yeah, obviously you just didn't have the energy to face this one, or you had other reasons. But if you're in this tournament, I'm not going to worry about the 4 rounds that you may have played just a few days ago.
Hat tip to you, Nejad. I believe Tom Hoagie was 66-1 to be the first round leader.
Mm-hmm. It depends where you got him, because I got him 80-1. Others got him at 90-1, believe it or not.
Well, there is only one sports book on the planet. It's called Caesar Sportsbook, and he was 66-1. So I have the official number available. So doy, but hat tip to you, a full 55-hour sweat, Sia. Come on.
Yeah, that was pretty cool because, while I do give out like first round leader plays and outrights on other shows, I don't really do that on the first cut. And on the Tuesday show, I just kind of threw it out there at the end of the show. And I threw out 4 guys, and one of them was Tom Hoagie. Listen, that guy's so underappreciated. He's such a good ball striker, and he can get hot with the putter. Man, I wish he had a better a better Monday. But yeah, that was a fun one.
That was a fun one. Okay,
well, so fun. And see, I want to say this, by the way, when you say it on any show you say it on, it's just like saying it on the first cut, because you, my friend, represent the first cut everywhere you go.
Oh, that's right.
That's right.
100%. I'll try to throw out, maybe as the weeks come, I'll just throw out a couple names at the end of the show, like just to throw a couple bucks.
Love it.
We are going to dive headfirst into the paint bucket that is this player pool. But first, we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our partners.
The only way you survive this is working together, leaning on each other. This trip ain't even got hard yet. But hard's coming.
Tell anybody who listens that you lived through hell.
It wasn't hell, Daddy. It was beautiful.
1883. All episodes now streaming exclusively on Paramount Plus.
And we're back. The $10,000 range on DraftKings. Justin Thomas, $11,000 flat. Victor Hovland, 10-8. Colin Morikawa, 10-7. Xander Schauffele, 10-3. And Dustin Johnson, fresh off tying the course record at TPC. Sawgrass is 10,200. Greg, you know a thing or two about course records. Let's start with you.
Still there, Sia? You hear me?
Oh, no.
Yeah, Greg, we can hear you.
We must have lost Rick. Oh, Rick, you're back.
Did you guys lose me?
Yeah, I think we lost you.
No, Sia says no, you didn't. We lost you, Greg.
Oh, you lost me. I saw Sia moving. I couldn't tell what was going on.
Oh, I had such I was doing such a great thing where I talked about Dustin Johnson's course record. I said, Greg, you know a thing or two about course records. Why don't you kick us off in the 10K? It was beautiful.
Well, I'm happy I can do it right now. Okay. And so, yes, Dustin Johnson, a beautiful course record. That could be a factor this week. Again, he had a great putting week last week. And he was he hit the ball beautifully, but I loved what he did on Sunday on the 4th round with the putter. That's something that hopefully he can bring ahead going forward. His record here is not great. He does have a tied 6th in 2019. Other than that, there's not much that really draws my attention. But I just have to think, looking at this board, that Justin Thomas is the perfect fit here. I think there's a little redemption story, getting the bad side of the draw, playing that great round of golf. I think it wore him out a little bit. I do think he was a little tired and kind of ran out of steam. But I think this golf course is perfect for him, and because he's such a great shot maker. And he had a tied 13th last year, a tied 18th 2 years before that, and a tied 10th in 2015. So he missed the cut once, but his other 3 starts are really good. I got to think Thomas is the favorite for a reason, and I think he's, in many cases, worth paying up for.
Justin Thomas has gained strokes on approach in every event dating back to, the 2021 Masters. Yeah, we're almost at a full year since that last time that Justin Thomas has lost strokes on approach in a measured event. Okay, Greg has put his bid in for Justin Thomas. Sia, how do you assess this $10,000 range?
Yeah, DJ, it's so interesting. I like him. I think I like Victor Hovland and Colin Morikawa the best. I do also think they might carry the most ownership, at least in this range. Of course, I'm talking about. I think Xander's going to be relatively low owned. I'm really not interested in Xander, to be honest with you. But Victor Hovland, listen, we can see it on this chart if you're watching YouTube. 3rd place last year in 2021. His around the green failures, while some might emphasize around the green game here, with past winners in past like top 10s, top 5s, guys with decent course history, a lot of them don't have the best short game. So I'm not necessarily worried about that with Victor Hovland. I think last year's 3rd place finish kind of tells you the story when it comes to that. I think Victor Hovland and Colin Morikawa are probably the 2 best players, or at least 2 of the guys that are playing the best in this field right now. I completely wash away, no pun intended, Colin Morikawa's performance last week. I mean, I don't think people will be off of him because he missed the cut, because I think everybody kind of knows why. But those 2 are definitely the prime candidates for me. And I will say this: the pricing is pretty kind of steep here. I don't mean in this range. What I mean is you can't just stack high-end guys like you could at the Players. Like, this is very different. If you're trying to get somebody in this 10K range and then maybe somebody in the 9K range, well, welcome to the low 7K range from then on out. So be really careful and calculated who you pick up here.
Yeah, stepping foot into the 6K range is a little bit scary this week for sure. Okay, so Victor, obviously, despite the short game troubles, has been a ball striking maniac to get himself inside the top 10 at the API and the Players Championship. He gains like 14.5 strokes between the 2 ball striking categories. Last week, it was the highest total of his career. The one name that we haven't mentioned here, Greg, it's Xander Schauffele, and he kind of got wiped in that bad wave as well. He's cheap than a lot of his peers here, but I think that he is the biggest shrug of the whole section. Like, I generally don't know what to do with Xander, and I imagine he is not going to be particularly popular.
I think that is a great sign. And because he's not going to be very popular, I think he becomes more attractive. As soon as I heard Sia say that, my ears kind of perk up. I mean, we know what happened with the draw, same as Colin Morikawa last week. So I think it's safe to say we can give him a pass. You just look at these finishes everywhere else. I mean, 13th at the Genesis, 3rd at the Phoenix Open, tied 18th in Saudi Arabia, tied 34th, 12th, tied 12th, tied 28th. I mean, it goes on and on. He's a top 25 machine. And maybe that's not enough when you get into the 10K range, but Xander to me is the guy in this range that I know what I'm going to get more than anybody else. I mean, if you're worried about Hovland at all, it would be because of fatigue, which is the same with Thomas. And I feel really strongly that he's a steady player, and it might be worth a pay down on Xander Schauffele, especially if he's low owned as a contrarian play. I would say not my favorite in this range, but if he's really unpopular, he could be a really valuable asset.
Yeah, how do you think the ownership shakes out here, Sia, in the 10K? We don't have to put a number on it, but Victor Morikawa kind of 1, 2, DJ 3, JT 4, Xander 5. Am I close?
I think that's the exact order. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think to Greg's point, yeah, Xander certainly is the game theory play as far as this range is concerned. For me, I don't see enough from Xander to justify. I mean, listen, I actually like him as a contrarian play if his ownership ends up being really low compared to the other 4 guys. But I think another way to do it, and I do like the Xander play in that regard, but I think another way to do it is just have your roster construction maybe be built a little differently and maybe start in the 9K range and maybe build a really balanced lineup without one of these elite guys.
It is interesting because if you do get one of the 10K guys and you want one of the guys in the 9K, see, as you were mentioning, it's kind of bottom of the barrel stuff for you. And I like the bottom of the 7K range. We'll get to that eventually, but I really don't want to go into the 6s all that much.
Yeah, there's a couple of guys I have my eyes on in the 6K range that I think they're not mispriced, but I think are sort of on the ascent. But you're right. This is not the tournament to really, bask in the 6K range. That's for sure.
Well, let us bask in the 9K range. Louis Oosthuizen, Terrell Hatton, Shane Lowry, Sam Burns. That's the upper half of the $9,000 range. The bottom half, Brooks Koepka, Abraham Answer, Jason Kokrak, Tommy Fleetwood, and Matt Fitzpatrick. I've got I got a couple of names in here that I'm pretty comfortable with, Greg, but how would you start breaking down the nines?
It's a really strong lineup, I think, a strong section, and I could see you starting here. Louis has a really strong record here, and he's been playing some really good golf. That strong record really in the last 4 years, but it tied 8th, it tied 2nd, tied 16th, tied 7th. He really seems to like this place, and I like what I've seen. We've gotten. I mean, Players Championship, I would say, got away from him a little bit, but we've started to see him play, which is nice. We've seen him play now 3 times in the calendar year, and maybe he's starting to get a little bit loose. Now coming to a place he really likes. I think this is a comfortable time to play him. But the other guys that I like are a little bit lower there in the bottom half of this, and it'd be Abraham Answer and Jason Kokrak. They are both very attractive to me with great records and playing well. I think Abraham Answer played better than that tied 33rd finish last week. He was tied. He's tied 39th at the Genesis, tied 43rd in Phoenix, and I think he's kind of on the right trend, but it just hasn't quite clicked yet. And coming to Valspar, a place he has a 5th and a tied 16th, I think it could click this week.
Yeah, the thing about the Copperhead course, especially more so than a lot of these other Florida courses, is that it's tree lined. And if you are a little bit out of the fairway, that's okay. If you're a little bit further out of the fairway, you're kind of in the trees and you're in trouble. For someone who's as accurate as Abraham Answer is off the tee, top 10 in driving accuracy, there's not going to be many situations in where you have to worry about not being able to hit these greens in regulation, and they are difficult greens to hit in regulation. So Answer is one of the guys that stuck out to me. We have not necessarily hit on the other one yet, but Sia, here we'll give you a couple cracks at the guys that you like out of this tier.
Yeah, well, let me just ask you real quick. Is the other guy you have your eye on? I assume he's not a super popular name. Is it Jason Kokrak by any chance?
You know what? He'd probably be number 3. I love the Kokrak upside. I love the way he's played at this event. 3 straight top 13 finishes. He's a true win equity guy in this field, but that was not who I was specifically thinking about.
Fair enough. So, it's funny. This 9K range, I'm not as in love with as I normally am with the 9K range. So that's news. I like Louis quite a bit. Sunday was a little discouraging, but that's mostly because I put a live bet on him, on Saturday night, or Sunday night. But that's certainly not disconcerting enough for me to be off him. I think the history here is good. The game sets up perfectly, which is reflected by the history. I like him quite a bit. I was considering Shane Lowry. I don't know that Shane Lowry's the best course fit here, where you might have to be more of a tactician. And I don't know that that's Shane Lowry's game necessarily. Just going down, I do like Jason Kokrak. I like Answer. I just wonder what Answer's win equity is relative to some of the guys around him, namely like Sam Burns and Jason Kokrak. I don't know that I'm going to go back to Matt Fitzpatrick. I was on him like a lot of the DFS community last week. I just can't really figure him out. He's one of the guys that always rates out really well, but never, for me at least, never really comes through like the model will suggest. So for me in this range, it's going to be Louis, maybe a little bit of Kokrak. I don't know that I'm going to be on Burns, but that's going to be ownership dependent.
That's your guy, right, Rick?
Burns is the guy.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just, for 3 rounds, he's in the thick of it at Sawgrass, Greg, and he has kind of a sour round 4, which is easy to do. And now he's the defending champion. And I just wonder if people look at the T20, I think it was T26 is what he ended up finishing. Look at that. I think he played better than what that final result actually indicates.
Yeah. And I think that's fair. Unfortunately for me, it's a rule violation, right? I'm not taking the defending champ at all, at any venue. And so I wonder, I don't know if this is going to be a dominant place for him, but I certainly like the form coming in. The last 2 weeks, I agree with you that what he did at the Players was much better than that finishing result. And he played well at the API the week before that too. So he's in good form, and he checks all the boxes.
The other situation that we have in the 9K range, and Sia, you touched on it. It is Matt Fitzpatrick. So he was probably the most popular guy on the slate last week, and then misses the cut and is now $1,300 more expensive. That is usually a combination of things that makes a lot of people feel ill. So how low would his ownership have to be for us to venture back into those waters?
It's such a great question because Matt Fitzpatrick is one of those guys that, again, typically rates out pretty well in models and therefore kind of gets a lot of ownership. But in this particular tournament, coming off what we saw last week and knowing kind of who's around him, it's such a tough call in terms of what his ownership is going to be. I will say this, to answer your question, if he is under like 8%, which I don't think he will be, then I would go ahead and scoop him up. Even if he's under 10%, I would consider it. But if he's in the double digits, I'd rather move off because I honestly think ownership's going to be spread around pretty thin across the board, especially in this 9,000 and up range. So I don't know that there's a reason to take him unless the ownership is very low relative to the other 9K guys.
I'm just going to throw this out there. Gained a shot and a half tee to green, was on the wrong end of the draw. All the strokes he lost were basically with the putter, and he's not going to be very popular. And he's a top 10 machine. Just throwing all that out there. Greg, you get final thoughts on the $9,000 range before we move on. Anything else, or should we bop on down?
I think we're ready to bop on down. I think we've touched on pretty much everybody. I guess we haven't really touched on Tyrrell Hatton. I don't feel too crazy about him. I think with the Louis, the Answer, the Kokrak, and the Burns, I think we kind of have the 9K figured out.
Time to bop. We are going to go down to the $8,000 range and below, but first we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our partners. And we're back. The $8,000 range, pretty small. The top end of it, Jason Day, Bubba Watson, Alex Noren, HV3. Gary Woodland, smack dab in the middle, and the bottom of the 8,000s, Keegan Bradley, Webb Simpson, Kevin Kisner, Russell Knox, and Cam Tringale, Sia's doppelganger. So, Sia, why don't we start with you here in this $8,000 range?
Yeah, it's funny about Cameron Tringale. I was kind of going back and forth on him. A third place finish in 2021, a couple missed cuts in a row, and he's missed the cut here a couple times too. I don't think I'm going to be on my doppelganger, but I will start with Bubba Watson. Just seems really interesting. First of all, I'm not just going on his course history here, 13th and a 4th, the last two tries here, 2021 and 2019. The metrics have been pretty good too. The ball striking has been pretty good. Didn't really finish well at the Players, missed the cut at the Genesis, but was 14th at the Waste Management, which was a much more talented field than what we have here. I think Bubba's really interesting. And another guy I'm probably going to be on, and he's probably going to be pretty chalky because he's only 8,100 and he's coming in with great form and very good course history, is Russell Knox. There's really not much negative to say about Russell Knox, unless his ownership, becomes a certain level where you're just like a Fitzpatrick type level where you're like, all right, I'm just going to fade him because that's sort of the game theory play. It's those two for me in the 8K range. I'm considering Gary Woodland. I think this is probably the right course for Gary Woodland where he doesn't need to pull out driver every time. My worry is looking at the course history, even during the years where he was actually pretty good, like the good Gary Woodland, he was missing cuts here. So that frightens me a little bit. Maybe this isn't the course for him, but those are the three guys I have my eye on here.
The Bubba stuff is pretty interesting. I think of at least the Florida courses, this is a more creative Bubba spot. There's some dog legs. There's elevation changes. If you look at what he's done at this event, it's low key pretty good. He doesn't play it every year, but he gains, I think it's like a stroke and a half per round over 22 rounds. That's a great clip, Greg. So I'm certainly on the Bubba train. How would you start assessing this area of the board?
I'm with you on the Bubba train. I'm also with you on not Gary Woodland. I think it makes sense. I looked into it. I was very interested because top of your head, you think, what this course requires, and you would jump to him. It seems like it'd be perfect, but it just teaches us there's more to the game of golf than just what you do off the tee. And I think that's why Woodland has struggled. But Bubba, I'm interested in. Although I'm always kind of lukewarm on him. He's risky, but I like what I've seen of late, and I think this could be a good place for him. Guy I really like is Alex Noren, right below Bubba. He really has my interest, and lately he's been hitting the ball really nicely, especially with his irons. And if you look at what he's done at the Valspar in the past, just one trip last year, he finished tied 21st, and he lost strokes both off the tee and approached the green. Putted really well. I think he's hitting the ball better than he did last year when he comes in, and maybe he likes these greens. It's a short sample size, but he gained 4.8 strokes putting last time he was here. So I think Alex Noren could be very, very interesting and attractive. I mean, 2 top 10 finishes in his last 4 starts, tied 26 last week at the Players. I'm liking that.
Alex Noren, last 20 rounds, that's 5 events for him, is 5th in this field in strokes gained approach, which, Greg, to your point, that's a market improvement. He's generally considered a short game specialist, but he's in the stretch of a really good iron and wedge run. And
it could lead to contention. How much win equity is there? Is it as much as a Bubba Watson? I don't think so. But it's probably more than a Russell Knox, and it's probably equivalent to pretty much anybody in this range. I mean, I think Cameron Tringale may have a little more. He's chasing that first win. He seems like he's getting closer. It's probably unfair to say.
Yeah,
look, I think
the career win equity for Cameron Tringale is 0% historically.
Yeah, but we felt for a while that it's going to happen, right? And it's not like Alex Noren's a proven winner by any means either. So they're both kind of at 0. Who gets it first? If you compare the two, I just feel that Tringale is ready to win at some point. So I do like playing him as well. But I think Bubba, Noren, and Tringale would be the guys I'm interested in here.
Could I offer either of you a golfer who was 3rd in the field in strokes gained ball striking last week, who was 2nd in the field in tee to green, who took a penalty for his ball moving and also found the water late and still finished T5 at the Players Championship? Could I offer any of that to you guys, someone of that nature?
Came in 2nd here last year.
Is this at all interesting? If I don't say his name, it's interesting, right? If once I say his name, it's no longer interesting. So if I call him, Mickey Mouse, that's like a better situation. But if I call him Keegan Bradley Sia, I feel like that turns a lot of yums into yucks.
You know what's so funny about Keegan Bradley, and this kind of goes into the Adam Hadwin thing that Greg was saying, where he was like, "All right, I'm off Adam Hadwin." A few weeks back. I think I uttered the following sentence like literally 3 or 4 weeks ago about Keegan Bradley. I said something to, and I was grouping him in with Charlie Hoffman. I said something to the effect of, I just can't take these guys anymore because I don't really like it. Forget about win equity. It's like the top 10 equity. I don't see it there. I think a lot of guys are passing guys like Hoffman and Keegan Bradley. And there, Keegan Bradley comes out 11th at the API and 5th at the Players. So 2nd place here last year. That's a really interesting one, Rick. I wonder how many people are going to jump onto him. 8,400 seems like a pretty reasonable price in this field. I think he's a fine play. He's got pretty good course history here overall, and he's coming in with great form.
And now that you add the 5th and the tied 11th on the end of this run, it hasn't been that bad. It's not like it's just been awful, and all of a sudden it's 2 good weeks. You could make the case that he's been building towards something, and a pretty strong one. I mean, he's missed 1 cut this year. He's been playing some really good golf.
And the putter's improving. I mean, small sample size, but, instead of losing 4, 3, and 3 strokes, he's losing 1, gain, losing 1 again.
The red is getting a little lighter shade.
It's pink now instead of deep, dark red. All right, gentlemen, let's move on down to the $7,000 range. And we might be in a consensus here about the guy at the top, Adam Hadwin. He's 7,900. Christian Bezuidenhout also there at the top with Bernd Wiesberger and Mackenzie Hughes. I'm not going to read all of these guys, but if you scroll down to the bottom of the 7K range, you get the likes of Joel Damon, Scott Stallings, Stuart Sink, Sam Ryder. So, Greg, I think we can just cede the stage to you on Adam Hadwin for the moment.
Sure, we can just start there. Again, kind of like Keegan Bradley. When I say I'm done with him, he starts to play some better golf, and you can see now with the tied 9th at the Players and contention at the Players, things are trending in the right direction. All of a sudden, his iron play, which last year, right around the time I was really interested in what he was doing, was just awful. The iron play was terrible last year, and he seems like he's figured something out. You're talking about what is that? 5 of 6. 5 of the last 6. He's gaining strokes, and it was even getting a little better before that. So
Which, Greg, you know this as an instructor. This improvement in approach aligns perfectly with the start of the new year, where a lot of guys take the 5 or 6 weeks off, go back, figure something out. When I see an improvement align with time off, I'm very, very bullish on that.
Because it's not a flash in the pan, right? He didn't just find a swing thought that worked for a week. He's been working, and Rick, I would say he's been working on this for an even longer period of time, probably all of last year, and the time off, he was really able to button some things up. So I like the direction that he's going in. I don't like the fact that he missed his last 2 cuts here, but I like the fact that he's won and has a tied 12th. I think the golf course fits his game really well. And what he'll need to do is have a good driving week. And if Adam Hadwin has a good driving week this week, he'll be near the top of the leaderboard.
Yeah, I am an unbiased source of Adam Hadwin information, and I also, too, like Adam Hadwin this week. Sia Nejad, the 7K range is wide open. Have at it.
Yeah, so I like Hadwin, of course. When it comes to the upper 7K range, I don't know that I have a ton of interest. I mean, Aaron Wise and Brian Harmon, those guys are kind of interesting to me. Denny McCarthy, but it's really once I get to the low 7K range where I start to have some interest. And honestly, the way pricing is so prohibitive this week, I think a lot of people are going to end up living in this range. Let's start with a guy who might be painting the town red. And of course, that's Doc Redman, who is coming in. Yeah, you're welcome, everybody. Hey, you guys can use that. Everybody out there listening, you guys can use that. You don't need to even give me credit for it. Just take that one. Maybe articulate it a little bit smoother than I just
I don't
did.
think you have to worry, Sia.
Yeah, I think you'll be the only one using that one.
Darn it. Okay, so 26th at the Players. He is coming in with decent form, and we've seen the game sort of pick up. 33rd at Pebble Beach. There's some, slightly poor performances in between that. 39th here last year, but this is a guy, the price might seem a little too high, but again, this is the field we have. And we've seen the approach game start to get to the old Doc Redman numbers that we can see even here back in the summer of 2021. He had a great approach streak, and it looks like he's regaining that form. And when he pops on approach, he really pops on approach. Now, the around the green game might end up sort of biting him a little bit. But again, I'm not saying around the green game isn't important here. It certainly will be. But I just think there's been evidence that that's been overcome by players in the past. So I don't see why Doc can't overcome that as well. A few other names I'll give out there. A guy who was on the right side of the wave, but still just crashed and burned, who I like. And I like better on this course than last week, is Martin Laird. Ball striking, really the entire game is there for Martin Laird. It was just a bad week last week for whatever reason. I'm willing to overlook that. A few other names, Mito Pereira. I think, his popularity, I don't think will be as extreme. I think he's starting to, for the most part, let some people down. The ball striking is still kind of there, though, in spite of the cut at the Players. He gained ball striking, just the putter that's been failing him. 2 more names, actually just 1 more name, Adam Svensson. This is a guy that I think in this field has tremendous upside, and I have no problem taking a chance on him at 7,200.
Yes, Pereira and Martin Laird fall firmly into that team no putt category, at least the current version. Svensson, I'd also throw in there, but he has been great on approach, giving it all away on the putting surfaces, but we're seeing a couple of top 10s at the Honda Classic and at the Sony Open. Okay, Greg, I'll bounce this back to you. I actually do also kind of like the bottom of the 7K range. I could see cases for Svensson and Patton Kizzire, who's just kind of like a prolific birdie maker, and he's always better for fantasy purposes than he is for PGA tournament events. Francesco Molinari, I think, sets up well for this place. I don't mind living in the bottom of the 7s if I don't have to step as much into the 6s.
I absolutely would agree. And I think a Molinari could be an interesting play. I really like a couple of the names that Sia mentioned, Svensson being one and Pereira being another. I'll add one more to the mix here at 7,300. Matthias Schaub has my interest this week. He's been playing some nice golf, and he's done it with approaching the green. Now, it's not a lot of official events here on the PGA Tour, but he does have back-to-back tied 7s. One of them is at the Honda, one of them is at the Puerto Rico Open, and I think he's hitting the ball really nicely. Basically, everything except his off-the-tee game has been phenomenal in the last little bit. So I'm very interested in him, although he has no history here. And a guy who this course should work out really well for. I'm a little skeptical because the finishes of late have kind of seemed to go the wrong direction. That'd be Lanto Griffin at 7,400. But I think Lanto stands out in this price range as a player who's probably a little more talented, a little more upside sitting in this range. And he also provides a pretty steady floor. He doesn't really miss cuts very often. And I think he could be a valuable asset here.
Yeah, certainly fair assessment there of Lanto's game. Okay, let's walk carefully. Let's carefully jump into this $6,000 range and see. My first option is to avoid it. If I have to go with option 2, who can I find in this range that will hopefully not make me cry in a corner?
Okay, so let's start near crying in the corner. That's a funny image. Just watching your golfer crying in the corner. Okay, so a guy with really bad course history, but he hasn't played it much. But a guy whose game has genuinely turned around, and it's JJ Spaun. I've actually been on him in DFS over the last, 7 or 8 tournaments here and there. And I think, and if you just look at him, just taking out, let's look at the metrics as I'm talking about this. Because, the short game has been sort of out of whack. The approach game has been hit or miss. But we've seen him pop with the approach game. And just watching him, I understand there's a lot of crash and burn potentially here, especially with the short game, ARG, and the putter. But I like the way he's striking the ball. Again, that's more of an eye test thing for JJ Spaun than anything else. But I think he's in much better shape now. I guess you guys could probably inform me on this one. He was suffering with some sort of illness over the last couple of years. Is that accurate? Maybe you guys don't know
that, Greg? I don't know that.
No, I didn't know that. But I do like him this week.
Yeah, I'll have to look into that. I might be speaking out of turn there. But either way, I like where his game is trending. So I think he's fine at 6,900. A couple guys with really good course history, Zach Johnson and Vaughn Taylor. I think it kind of speaks to the fact that you can be a shorter hitter, more of a tactician, and get around on this course just fine. And then another guy that's actually striking the ball pretty well and who's finished, I think he's played here once, and I think he finished 29th. It's Pat Perez. So I think Pat Perez is in a price range here where you can probably take him and try to build a little bit more at the top. And then, of course, one more guy, Rick. I have to mention this guy because, hey, he made the cut at the Players, by the way. He was 13th here last year in the midst of actually playing really good golf, which he did for a 4-month stretch. And he was 46th the year before that. It's Hammer and Hank Lebioda at 6,600. So I'll take some of that.
It's certainly not a DFS preview without Hammer and Hank making an appearance here. JJ Spaun had a diabetes misdiagnosis. So he was kind of battling weight and his intake, and also how else that can impact your game. And Greg, as you know, little stuff like that, or I guess this is kind of big stuff. Golf, there's so much that happens off the course that impacts these guys that it seems now, this is from 2 weeks ago, feeling healthy, feeling good, feeling the best he's ever felt.
I mean, you think about what Cam Smith said after he won. It all has to do with his body. He monitors what he puts into his body and what he does to take care of his body, and that's the biggest difference maker for him. So it has a huge effect. And I think he's a valuable option this week, no question.
I will submit carefully Tyler Duncan to the category. I think his results, again, not necessarily as bad as they appear, because he gained 3 strokes at the American Express and missed the cut, because that's a weird little course rotation where that can happen. Austin Smotherman is 6,400. We've seen early in his young career, he's kind of a ball striking fanatic. What else could we get out of this range here, Greg? Is there anybody that interests you?
Yeah, Matthew Neesmith interests me. He missed the cut at the Players and uncharacteristically lost 4 strokes approaching the green. But he has 1 start here at the Valspar, and it was a tied 21st. So I find him interesting. I think Adam Long is playable, although I don't love it. He just seems like a guy who I know can make a cut for me if I'm down here, and I think he could contend if he plays well, which is it's a big if, because his old record, which is now broken, but he had a tendency of finishing in the top 30 or missing the cut. I miss Vincent Whaley as I continue to scroll down here. I wish we had him back in the mix, but those are really the best options that I've seen in this range.
Troy Merritt had a top 10 here 2 years ago. He's popped a little bit recently. He made the cut at Bay Hill and at Sawgrass, so he's playing in some deeper, stronger fields. This might be a spot for him to pop at $6,600. But I see I don't want much to do with this if we can avoid it.
I got two more names.
All right, go ahead.
One would be I've never played this guy before. Maybe this will be the first time. Trey Mullinax. He had a tied 8th in 2018, tied 54th last year. He's only played here 3 times. He missed the cut at the API, but he came in tied 30th at the Honda, tied 28th at the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. Seems to be hitting ball okay, at least off the tee. He's hitting it nice. And then the last one I'll throw in there, and this is a flyer. It's an educated guess here, but Kurt Kitayama. I saw that name as well. Yeah. And he played nicely at the Puerto Rico Open as well. I think it was a tied 28th for him, and he maybe he's on it. Maybe he's hot right now. Maybe he's on a heater. So it's a little bit of a guess at that rate, but I think it could be another name to throw in the mix.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good one, I think, all things considered. A couple of good starts in a row, $6,500. Okay, well, before we get out of here, I got a couple of fun little items. And Sia, you have not only been crushing the first round leaders, but you have been giving us these weird little narrative lineups, and they seem to be working just well. So there's actually a tweet here from David that, if you're watching on YouTube, producer Jacob has up here, and he says a little cash beats losing with an all first name lineup. And then he asks Sia, what is unique about this? Do you see something here?
Well, so he's asking what's the unique lineup for this coming week. This was, if you remember, Rick, this is the one where we were on the all first names lineup. So,
okay, so it's Justin Thomas, Adam Scott, Paul Casey, Keith Mitchell, Chris Kirk, and then he snuck in KH Lee at the bottom, which doesn't really fit, but this is the all first name team.
Well, Lee is a first name.
Is KH a first name? Oh, I guess it is his first name.
Young Hun, it's his first name.
So yeah, so by definition, yes, it is. Yeah.
So here's what I'll do, Rick. I'll tell you for the Valspar, I think when you have a V at the beginning of the title, I think it's a pretty prominent, like the V. So I went with guys this week, of course, who have a V in their name, which is pretty convenient for me because my top guy there is of course going to be a guy who has 2 V's in his name. And Rick, he's your best friend. It's Victor Hovland, not Daniel Berger's best friend, but your best friend. It's Victor Hovland. So if you want to go with more V guys, I'm just going to give you the pool of players here. It's Harold Varner III, not bad, pretty good last week. Johnny Vegas, who could do pretty well here. Vaughn Taylor, Adam Svensson, who we talked about. Shez
silent.
Reedy.
That's like a silent V too. Well, I guess not. That's an interesting V.
Right. We got Vincent Whaley, who Greg just mentioned. Kevin Streelman, the V in Kevin, of course. Davis Love III, if you want some long shots, and of course Seth Reeves. How could I not mention Seth Reeves? But
gotta have him.
You can build off those first 6, and it's, you got some money left over, of course, but it's not a bad lineup.
The good news about this is if it doesn't work this week, you could just use it at the Valero, because that's also a V.
Oh, no worries, Rick. I'll have a much different and more important narrative for that one.
Of course. I think they're all as equally as important, Greg.
I found one because I was looking through before pricing came out. We know pricing was a little delayed, and Rick, I was on your site and I'm scrolling through, and I think there's an A team lineup here as a potential narrative as well. You could have Adam, first name A's.
Yeah.
Adam Hadman, Adam Svensson, who's in your V lineup as well. Alex Noren, Abraham Answer, Alex Smalley, and Aaron Wise. And if you go with the A team, you got like 2,100 left over. So you're leaving a lot on the table. But I think I like at least 4 of those guys, and I'm kind of interested in 5 and 6.
Yeah, you could even roll out Austin Smotherman. That's an A. Andrew Landry, Andrew Putnam. There's some other guys.
I passed on those guys.
I think that's probably smart.
I kind of like Smotherman as a long shot, by the way. I'm just
all right. Well, he could go on your A-team lineup. What do you think, Sia? Does that pass your narrative test?
I think the A-team lineup is great. I love that show, so that helps too. Oh, that was before your time too, just like the Commodore 64.
Yeah, we are not your audience for that one, my friend.
No.
Yeah. Sia, would you like to try to run it back and see if you can find us another first round leader for this week?
Okay, so this was not scripted. Rick, I was hoping you would ask me that because about 4 random ones. I mean, this is kind of weird because it's late in the week, but it's kind of early. We don't have a ton of information. I guess, tee times aren't out yet, I don't think. But I'm going to throw out 5 names for you. You guys ready?
Yes. Yes, I'll write them down. Here we go.
Yeah. Are you sitting down?
You can see that I'm sitting down, Sia.
Oh, that's true. That's fantastic then. Okay, so let's start with our guy, Adam Hadwin, first round leader at Innisbrook at 70-1. Alex Norn, another guy we like, who's frankly, metrics kind of blew me away.
Oh no.
Let's take a shot at Mito Pereira at 80-1. I don't like that one quite as much as the first 2. Let's go with somebody from the All V team. And that is, of course, your first round stalwart, Jonathan Vegas at 100-1. And then finally, listen, it's the Valspar. We are painting the town green, not red, with money. And that, of course, is Doc Redman. I got to work on my pitches.
There were so many twists and turns. There were so many twists and turns in that. Adam Hadwin, Alex Noren, Mito Pereira, Johnny Vegas, and Doc Make Your Pockets Green Redman.
Sure, that's better. Well, we'll continue to work.
We'll workshop that one. There's a lot. We didn't even play off the Doc part of it yet. There's plenty to do there.
Yeah, that's next.
Wow. A complete DFS preview on a Tuesday morning. It's
phenomenal.
What was the number? What was the number you got on Noren first round leader?
Noren was 75-1 plus 7,500. Hadwin 70, Noren 75, Mito 80, Vegas 100, and Doc 110.
Easy game. Hopefully will not take 55 hours to resolve itself this week. Could you imagine?
Yeah, Could
you imagine? Okay, that'll do it. We will be back on Wednesday for the mega preview pod. Make sure your official fan one and done vote is in. Link in the description. For now, let me thank producer Jacob. Does all the hard work behind the scenes. Sia Nejad, available on Twitter at Sia Nejad. Greg DuCharme is available at The Real GFD, and you can find me at RickRunGood. This has been The First Cut, and we'll catch you next time.